on Hot Copy this morning, the never-ending debate on ivermectin continues and the controversy and the investigation. The lower house is set to conduct a probe why regulators seem to be getting in the way of ivermectin use in the Philippines to fight COVID-19. Joining us now is the chair of House Committee on Health. We have Helen Tan. Good morning to you, ma'am, Congresswoman Tan.
Hi, Karen. Good morning.
All right. What does this House Committee hearing, frankly, aim to achieve?
Actually, Karen, the Committee on Good Governance conducted already a hearing on ivermectin, and I wasn't able to join that hearing, but I had a briefing on the status of ivermectin last, I think, Holy Tuesday. And I think our goal is for people to know that ivermectin has no license yet in the Philippines. And
let's use Congresswoman, just for our viewers, no. Let's use the word human ivermectin or ivermectin human grade. Kasi yung veterinary grade ivermectin has a license.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So meron po tayo na veterinary for animals, no? A license ng FDA, but for human use, as per FDA, wala pa po tayo na merong lisensya. Although I was advised by the FDA, and during that hearing of the Committee on Governance, they shared that there's this local pharmaceutical company who sought, I think, a license. But the question there is, for what purpose? If it is anti-parasitic, still you cannot use that for antiviral.
Okay, but then you're a doctor, right, Dr. Tan?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. But then, all right, I'll just move with that argument for a bit, no? So you said if it's an anti-parasitic drug and it's sold as an anti-parasitic drug, you cannot use it for any, let's put it directly, you cannot, it's technically not allowed to be used as a treatment for COVID, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yes, that's what you mean as a doctor. But then there are many drugs in the market that once a doctor issues a prescription, use it for off-label use on something else. I've had that myself, my experience, myself, even with my son with autism. There are drugs and then it would have a side effect on something else and they would prescribe it for another use. Yes. So you call that off-label. So are you saying if a doctor uses this, but with a prescription of a doctor and says, okay, I am prescribing you ivermectin, a licensed one for human grade, I will advise you as prophylaxis for every 3 weeks before you get vaccinated. Are you telling me that would be illegal if a doctor does it? Because it's not illegal when it comes to other drugs. Doctors are allowed to do that.
Yes, I think some doctors are doing that, but I think the issue there is you have that packaging label, right? Medicine. And makikita naman natin. So kung pinrescribe siya ng doctor, I think nasa agreement and understanding between patient and doctor. So the patient will take it at their own risk, no? Ibig sabihin, payagan ng pasyente at tinitingnan niya na walang responsibilidad ang doktor to whatever will happen to that patient for taking that medicines.
No, but if a doctor prescribes it, then it means you trust the doctor. The doctor has liability in prescribing it. It's not at the own risk of the patient anymore. It's a doctor and the patient.
Yeah, but
okay.
Karen, hindi pa din siya tinatanggap eh. Ang pupwede kasi kung ang isang gamot ay intended for another use and ginamit mo outside doon sa pag-aaral, no, ng paggamit na hindi siya kino-cover at ipinrescribe siya ng doctor, still hindi pwedeng gawin ng doctor yon. Unless kung meron tayong compassionate use permit.
Okay.
So kung may compassionate use permit, okay siya. But kung between the doctor and the patient, which you shared earlier, no, na nangyayari, it's between understanding ng doctor at ng pasyente kung sa tingin doktor makakatulong doon sa pasyente. But I guess when it comes to liability, the patient should ask the prescribing doctors kung ano ba ang mangyayari doon sa pasyente. And I'm sure naman siguro yung doctor hindi magpe-prescribe doon sa pasyente na matagal na niyang inaalagaan. Like for example, you mentioned your son, no? More or less, alam na ng doctor, ng attending physician mo yung condition. But for ivermectin is a different story, no? Patients are lining up and getting prescription, and you'll get to interview those patients. But as a whole, the totality of the condition of the patient, I think a day or a few minutes of interview will not be enough.
Okay, what is the real fear with ivermectin? I'm just curious because there is not one person really who's died because of ivermectin. It's all over the world. It's a very old anti-parasitic drug that's deemed as one of the safest in the world. So I'm curious where the fear is coming from. If the doctor knows what he's doing, I'm just curious. Why are people so afraid?
I think, Karen, the fear there is that you're using a medicine that is not licensed already. Because in licensing, you get to check on what are the compounds that was used or were used in manufacturing that medicine. You check on which of the manufacturer compound or manufactured that medicine. So I think...
But then aren't there licensed compounding pharmacies in the Philippines, frankly? I mean, you have Mercury Drug as one of the biggest that compounds that they can or is licensed to. I'm not saying they sell it human grade, but there are licensed compounding pharmacies in the Philippines.
Yeah, I heard it is allowed in our country. I asked FDA regarding compounding. And when I asked during that QC distribution of ivermectin, they said they have partners who compound medicines. But I asked the FDA to just monitor if it's really a trusted and licensed compound facility, or like what you said, the Mercury. Yes, we allowed that. We just want people to be responsible enough in doing that. Like, for example, what happened in QC.
Yeah. So did what Congressman Mike Defensor and Congressman Marcoleta, just honestly speaking, for you as a doctor, was that against the law?
When they said that they partner with a compounding facility or an institution allowed by FDA, I think they're doing it in accordance to law, no? But
because the FDA really only allowed compassionate use for human-grade ivermectin.
No, when I talked to DG Eric, he said it is allowed, no, from his mouth, that before that day or the event na nag-distribute sina Congw Marcoleta, nilinaw ko sa kanya kung ito ba ay pinapamayagan. Kasi we have 5 hospitals whom they issued the compassionate use. And he said yes, allowed yung kung ang kanilang katuwang doon sa ginawa nila ay licensed, no, compounding facility. So kung yun ang nangyari, Karen...
But isn't that mass distribution already? I mean, mass distribution and compassionate use, aren't they 2 different things?
Yes, correct ka dun sa observation na yon, no? Kasi that's what I'm telling earlier na doon sa implementation, they should be responsible enough, no? Pinayagan ng FDA to distribute, but kung mass distribution, parang that's outside naman doon sa current policy natin on dispensing medicines, no?
Mali po yun.
I think may confusion, Karen, when it comes to implementation. That's why I asked the enforcement agencies natin, like FDA and DOH, to be firm on their stand and to clarify talaga alin lang ang pwede at alin lang ang hindi. Kasi kung pinayagan nila dahil nasway ba sila because it's a politician or dahil nagkaroon ng pagdinig sa Kongreso, mawawala ng tiwala ang mga mamamayan kung ganun, kung papayagan natin. Ang magiging president siya. Anytime magkakaroon ng gamot na darating that they will claim or say will be a cure for COVID-19, mangyayari sa susunod na pagkakataon.
Because what's confusing in this whole situation, you have the FDA, you have members of the medical community that are so against it. And here you are, Congresswoman, Chairperson of the Committee on Health. And yet you have two lawmakers who clearly distributed ivermectin on a mass scale. That's a mass scale. And yet no one, not one, is calling them to really any form of sanction. I mean, I want to ask you, should, frankly, the lower house slap the two congressmen with some kind of sanction?
I don't want to say I'm going to slap them through my committee, no, but to conduct a hearing and invite FDA, DOH, and the medical field, no, societies coming from different societies, ano ba talaga ang tamang gawin, no? And so that we can correct, no, whatever happened a few weeks ago on the dispensing of that ivermectin, hindi na mangyayari in the next coming days or months. Yun siguro, I think the House Committee on Health will be a good venue to discuss that once and for all, no? Panindigan talaga ng ating law enforcement agency.
If a businessman, for example, with maybe a few employees, started handing out ivermectin to his employees, but with a prescription of a company doctor, would you consider that a violation of the law?
Yes, yes.
So isn't that what Congressman Mike and Marcoleta did? I'm just curious. I'm not, yeah.
Yes, because what they did is the compounding, no? They said it's allowed, the compounding, okay? So kinompound for distribution on that event, no? But kung nagdi-dispense siya at kinukuha niya sa isang distributor lamang na hindi natin alam, no, kung sino at saan galing yung gamot, that's against the law. Kasi malinaw naman na dapat may certificate of product registration or at least emergency use authority or compassionate use permit yung pamayagan ng FDA. Pero kung isang company doctor prescribed that ivermectin, whether they're dispensing on their own, bawal pa rin yon kung walang permito yung gamot.
Yeah, but let's say nga, it's exactly what Senator Mike Defensor did. It's exactly like those lawmakers, but then it was an ordinary citizen who did it. Yan ang tanong eh.
So
is there a different treatment to lawmakers and ordinary citizen who will do it for their employees?
So they have to get a permit from the FDA also. So kung yung company na yon they decided to, so they need to coordinate with the FDA kasi yung ginawa ni na Congressman Mike Defensor, they said it was coordinated already with FDA and FDA checked that the partner is an authorized compounding facility.
Did they really coordinate with the FDA? I mean, it seemed to me that FDA Yusek Domingo was shocked after it was done.
Well, I asked Yusek Domingo a day before that event, no? Tinawagan ko siya si Yusek DG. And I asked him, DG, i-clarify ko lang ha, ano ba talaga ang polisiya nyo? Sabi ko, kung pwede ito kasi they said, ang gagamitin nila is compounded by a pharmacist, ganyan. So ang sinabi ko lang sa kanya, please make sure na etong gagawin nila ay hindi imported medicines na galing kung saan at kung hindi kinompound ng authorized natin na institution. Yun lang ang sinabi ko sa kanya. So,
parang wag galing Amerika. Kasi may mga ivermectin na US, there's ivermectin now that's coming from the United States.
Yes. Kasi hindi natin alam kung paano ba talaga ito manufacture, no? Ang sinabi niya sa akin, yes, pinapayagan yung compounding. So that's why nagulat din ako doon kasi I thought hindi po pwede pa rin yun. We still have to go through the process of licensing na getting the CPR or the Emergency Use Authority.
Okay. The FDA is asking for a law that gives them some flexibility with experimental drugs. Is that needed?
I think so. Pwede nating ibigay sa kanila yung another functions or power to do that kasi with what's happening, like for example in COVID-19, no, dahil limited din naman yung functions nila on enforcing the law or overseeing the implementation of the law, hindi nila nagagawa yan. Although currently meron tayong panukala sa Kongreso wherein yung institution of the Virology Institute of the Philippines, creation of the Virology of Institute of the Philippines, but limited din siya, no?
Yeah.
So kung nating ibigay na function ito, especially in times of emergency like this, magawa talaga nila ito.
Oo. Because according to Undersecretary Domingo, so we have RA 9711, he says that functions as if we are in a regular, ordinary day with no emergency in the Philippines like today. So if a law is needed, that would take time.
Yeah.
By the time it's passed, baka nabakunahan na lahat ng Pilipino. Well, hopefully, right? But
yeah, but
is the law the only solution?
actually, that's for emergency use lang like what we have because the United States, I think, and in UK, they have that kind of law. I asked already Yusek Verheri if we are going to include that in the amendment of the Quality Cheaper Medicine Act, and she said it should be included in the amendment of FDA law. So ang tinitingnan natin, Karen, hindi yung ngayon lamang, but in the future, kung may dumating na ganito again, outbreak or pandemic, ay handa na tayo, hindi kung kailan na nandyan yung problema, sakalang nagmamadali ang Kongreso at Senado na gumawa ng batas. So ready tayo anytime na magkakaroon ng problemas na merong threat sa public health.
I wanted to ask you, the US FDA actually has created what they call CTAP. So if that's legal for our FDA to do, CTAP is what the US FDA calls Coronavirus Treatment Acceleration Program. So it's not a law, but what they did is it just created a special emergency program for possible coronavirus therapies. And Ivermectin is in one of those therapies, meaning, yes, it's not for COVID, but it's part of the CTAP. So under the CTAP, there are 600 plus drug development programs in planning stages. There are 440 plus trials by the FDA that's being reviewed. There are 10 COVID-19 treatments already currently authorized for emergency use. And there's only one that's been approved by the FDA specifically for COVID-19, which is remdesivir. So what am I saying? This is how innovative, proactive they are, that Ivermectin is part of the 10. You get my point? That's my point. I feel as a country, we are debating what people are dying when we can't seem, well, at least lawmakers, the FDA, people keep fighting the medical community to just say, okay, if this can't kill you, can't we just regulate it and see? So that's what the US FDA did. They created the Coronavirus Treatment Acceleration Program. So there may be drugs there that won't work. There may be that may work. But the point is they're doing it and acting. They're not arguing repeatedly. And the debate isn't moving. You know, doctor, that's the frustration here, right?
Karen, that's what I asked sa FDA during our hearing sa Committee on Health last Holy Tuesday, no? When we are not saying na against tayo sa Ivermectin. Give that medicine an opportunity. Pero anong proseso meron? So bigyan ng panahon.
Correct.
para pag-aralan. And we have experts in the country. That's why we ask nga DOST. Kaya lang, parang ang reactionary tayo. Nung mainit na ang debate, that's when nagkaroon na pag-aralan nila yung gamot kung ito ba ay pwede talaga as prophylaxis and treatment. That's why, ang sinasabi natin right now, kaya merong debate, I think, between the medical field and those who are pushing for the use of Ivermectin. Kasi nga, medyo late ang ating gobyerno or ang ating pamahalaan sa pag-respond doon sa usapin na yon. And we do have naman mga experts. So noon pa lang, sinabi na namin sa FDA na buksan at makipagtuwang like sa DOST kasi DOST. That's why FDA is asking kung po pwede silang mag-aral kasi talagang hindi nila function yon. So
Yeah.
yes. And maganda yung ginawa ng US, no? And which I think tama ka, we can also do that in the Philippines. So maging proactive lang tayo. It's just that siguro overwhelming yung problem natin with COVID, no? And with all the needs, no, na kinakailangan nating i-attend from testing to vaccination right now. So, and the availability of medicines, parang naguguluhan ang marami kung alin ba ang uunahin. But I think they should focus more on yung mga opportunities, no, na dumarating sa ating bansa. So tama yung na-share mo na maganda yung ginagawa ng United States. And na-call na rin namin ang attention of the concerned agencies to do that.
Because isn't the black market for Ivermectin, frankly, isn't that more dangerous at this point?
Yes.
Because it's not clear. Filipinos somehow have taken it upon themselves to protect themselves, which is dangerous because they're getting mixed signals. Here's one doctor who'll say, no, don't use that. Here's the FDA who'll say something neutral. That's, well, we have to give them a license. It's not against the law. And so if you're an ordinary Filipino, you become extremely confused. And then you have, I'm not even referring to Mike Defensor at this point. I'm talking about seeing 98-year-old former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile, who advocates for it, who takes it, and then here you are as a Filipino, then you lack information. Isn't that more dangerous? And now it's in the black market.
You're right. If I may share with you, Karen, remember that debate on the medical cannabis?
Yes.
Yes. Oh. And yung mga pasyente natin, they're getting it at the black market, I think. So, some medical cannabis. So, parang ganito yung nangyayari. Dahil desperate tayo and frustrated and because of that fear of getting and dying.
Yeah.
And doon nila nakukuha sa black market. Tama ka, you're right with your observation that it's very dangerous. Very dangerous na kumukuha ka. That's why nung napag-usapan na tanong ko, also papayagan dahil compounded locally yung Ivermectin. So more or less, they checked on the compounds that they used and the way they compound it. So papayagan nila. At least alam natin saan nanggaling. Yun ang understanding ko doon sa sinabi ni Yusek Domingo na pinayagan yung ginawa nila because it's through compounding. So yung that's why ang panawagan nga natin, hintayin yung resulta ng DOST. They said at the end of May, towards the end of May or first week ng June, they'll be coming up with the result of the trials, no? And if it's beneficial, masaya tayong lahat kasi magiging accessible sa lahat ng Pilipino.
My last question is former Health Secretary Esperanza Cabral, who's made it quite clear she finds it quite irresponsible that Ivermectin is being distributed or was distributed by two lawmakers. And she said this, the position of the FDA has weakened markedly. They will have no strength in the future to say, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, because it is against the law. Because she says the FDA at this point has already acceded to the violation of these laws. Do you agree that the FDA is already weak Congresswoman?
Well, ulitin ko na lang yung sinabi ko, Karen, earlier, no? Na sana yung aking posisyon dyan, Karen, talaga, for FDA and DOH to be firm on their stand. Sila ang nakakaalam ng batas, nagpapatupad ng batas. No, that's why na-share ko sa inyo na tumawag ako kay DG Eric at day before na nangyari yung pag-dispense nila. At gusto kong marinig from him, ito ba'y pinapayagan? And he said aloud yung compounding. So, okay. Hindi ako regulatory agency. Sinabi niya, who am I? No? But maraming loopholes dun sa nangyari. I myself, nakita ko through the news then. How it was being done. And ako din, sa mga several interviews ko, I said then, na-criticize ko din, even my fellow doctors, kung paano ginawa yung pag-prescribe,
should they lose their license? I just wanted to ask you, as a doctor, with the actions they've taken, I've interviewed already, of course, Dr. Iggy Agbayani. I have not yet spoken to Dr. Alan Landrito, but I've seen your interview with him at the hearing. I watched it. So with what they did in QC, should they lose their license?
Tingin ko hindi, Karen. Sanction only ng PRC and PMA. No? Ang nakita ko naman, erroneous prescription. Pero ang sa akin lang, Karen, with the debate on Ivermectin and they're pushing for it and they partnered with legislators na sila ang mas nakakaalam na itama sana at least yung tamang pag-prescribe at instruction sa ating mga pasyente. And I hope, katulad ng nasabi ko noon, na meron silang monitoring on patients who receive the Ivermectin so that alam natin yung nangyayari and they'll take the responsibility of dispensing and prescribing this medicine to this patient, whatever happens.
Okay. Now, being the House Committee Chair, and not only that, as we know, Congress has the power of the purse. Is it right that the clinical trials for Ivermectin, which is 22 million pesos, is being spent by the government? According to former Secretary Cabral, it shouldn't be the government spending for the 22 million pesos to prove whether Ivermectin works or doesn't work, but it should be a private company that wants a license, wants to push it, they should spend for the 22 million.
She's right when she said that it should be the private companies, but I think because of what's happening right now, the clamor of the people on using Ivermectin, the government has to step in. So kailangang pondohan ng gobyerno para once and for all, which I think kasi ang private sector won't do that, to invest on the clinical trials for Ivermectin. Dahil ang focus right now natin is yung making that supportive medicines available to the patients. Yun, I think, ang nangyari. So ayokong i-blame yung paggastos ng pera, but dapat matuto tayo dito sa nangyari na ito sa usapin ng Ivermectin, na hindi tayo nagre-react lamang dahil may matinding panawagan at clamor. So pwedeng nagawa ng tama on day one na naging usapin ang Ivermectin.
My last question, and I don't mean to put you in another corner here, is President Duterte was inoculated with Sinopharm, a vaccine that has no EUA, and ordinary people have told me, Karen, kung ako nabakunahan ng Sinopharm, baka arestuhin pa ako. So what do you make of that the President, although it does have a CSP, but then I asked Yusek Domingo, are you curious where Sinopharm came from? He did say a pharma company imported it, South Med. But then wouldn't that be smuggling? If it has no EUA, they brought it in the country. I'm just curious what you think as a doctor.
Actually, naitanong ko na yan kay Yusek Domingo even before pa the President inoculated the Sinopharm during the time the PSG. So I asked him, anong posisyon ng FDA, and he said merong compassionate use permit. So yun ang basehan. So ang sinabi niya sa akin, wala namang violation because we give them the compassionate use permit. And I think that's also the basis for inoculating the president, no? So siguro yung attending physician niya is confident enough having the permit, no? So siguro lang tingnan nila, regulate nila talaga yung nag-import nito. Bagaman nandito na sa ating bansa yung Sinopharm, still ipatawag pa rin yung company na nag-import at linawin yung mga papeles na meron sila.
Okay, last question. As Health Committee Chair, when are the hearings and what do you hope to achieve?
When we resume, no, we're scheduling hearings on May 17. I think we'll resume siguro second or third week ng May. We'll see kung we do have actually resolutions pending pa. Hasn't referred to my committee. So when they refer to the committee, we'll check on and definitely will conduct a hearing.
On that note, thank you so much for joining me this morning, Congresswoman Helen Tan. Appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.